over. I think offensively, Hugh Freeze and DeBoer kind of go after some of the same players. Defensively, I'm not 100% sure defensive scheme wise that they're going to. Offensively, yes. You look at Michael Penix, you look at the four he had at Washington, wide receiver wise, he wants to light it up. Hugh Freeze, same way at Ole Miss, had some very good wide receivers. Some of them didn't produce like they should have, but it's one of those things where it just happens like that. Got to get a good quarterback. So let's go ahead and get into that. Offensively, we have a recruiting war going on in the Dixieland.
Yeah, listen, there's no doubt. I love that graphic. Look at that.
Slick.
Now, see, this is high quality stuff over here. We've certainly listen. This isn't around the table sports anymore. We've stepped it up. That's a beautiful graphic. So no, you're 100% right, man. Definitely a recruiting war going on, and it's a lot of fun. I think that this is a fascinating conversation to have, right? And one of the things that I've talked about is we even on my channel not too long ago, we posed the question, shout out Bino, shout out Joseph, happy y'all are in here. Be sure to show the professor and High Top Sports some love. I love these guys, right? You guys know there's a lot of channels I work with, and High Top, the professor, these guys are, I get as excited to work with them as anybody out there. Absolutely worth y'all's time. Absolutely is worth y'all's subscription. Be sure to go check them out right after we're done. Sub to all their channels. You will not regret it. I promise you that. And you'll see me over there on Saturdays in the morning this season. You don't want to miss any of that, guys. So be sure to have that bell notification turned on so that you can be tuned in for all the action. And it is a lot of action. But redirecting the conversation, we had this topic discussed on my channel the other day. And I think, don't get me wrong, I am of the mindset that in-state recruiting matters. It does.
Yep.
Now, with the inception of NIL, with how national college football recruiting has gotten as a whole, I don't know that it matters like it did in the 80s or the 90s. But there's no question you want to win the battles for your state. I look at it as a three-pronged thing right now, man. One, you have Kalen DeBoer, who 90% of this staff in terms of on-field coaches are brand new. You return two guys in an on-field capacity. That's Freddie Roach. That's Robert Gillespie. Both of them are incredible recruiters. I can actually try and find you this list I have of the guys Robert Gillespie has gotten. Just you being a college football fan, you'll nerd out on that. But the other thing is whenever we're talking about in-state recruiting, I think relationships matter there far more than like your exterior recruiting. Kalen DeBoer and company, they're not from Alabama. They're not from the South. Even though they're great recruiters, and Alabama's number 2 in the nation in recruiting right now. Hopefully they get a big win on the 20th for Ackland Deer, major running back target. Auburn's doing a great job in state. You will not find me diminishing that. And in the green room, we were talking about what Auburn got last season in terms of that recruiting class. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a hot take right now, man. I think Cam Coleman's going to be their best wide receiver as a freshman. I think he's that good. I think he is incredibly gifted, an incredibly talented prospect. My biggest question there would be quarterback play, right? Like I really thought that you should have gotten someone in the portal. Peyton Thorne couldn't hold off Robbie Ashford last season. And now Ashford no longer there. Are you going to be able to be that guy? Maybe. But you got to convince me. In terms of the actual recruiting battles, a lot of people have been making a bigger deal about this than I believe they should, Cody. And the reason is quite simple. One, new staff in Alabama. Hugh Freeze and these guys have been in these recruits' ear for well over a year, right? Being able to lay down their pitch. Bama's coming in. And two, whenever we start diving into the actual names, there's a lot of context and nuance that I think people need to know. And if you would like, I can do that right now, kind of go through some of the guys they have and the context and nuance behind these battles.
For sure. Real quick though, can we break down that offense from 2024? We were talking about the wide receivers, the Freeze 4. You say Coleman. Guys, they got some killers.
They did.
They got a kid that reminds me of Kadarius Toney. He is he wiggles just like him. I'm trying to think of his name. golly, I should have pulled it up. I'm sorry, but they got some weapons last year, and I think that it's really going to elevate their offense. But my question was, why do you not go get a quarterback? You know, Coastal Carolina kid was back in there. You know, you can't get anybody better than Thorne. He can't be it, right? Do they have a guy maybe on the bench?
Maybe
that
they do
like?
that I don't know about, but if they're trotting out Peyton Thorne, and I Cody, you know me, I don't like, because I didn't play college football, so I don't like to be the one, having not played the game, being like, oh, this guy stinks. So I won't say that, but I'm far more confident with Peyton Thorne at the helm than say I'll even, you know what? I'll give you a real hot take. I'm more comfortable with Peyton Thorne at the helm of that than if DJ Lagway was to go over there tomorrow and be their quarterback.
Okay.
Because I think Lagway has the upside, right? Like, Thorne has been in college football. At least with a young guy, he's gonna, there's a lot of growth. I'm not saying there's not. We've seen quarterbacks grow late stages in their career. Is Peyton Thorne one of them? It's got to be shown to me. You know what I mean?
For sure, for sure. That wide receiver I was talking about was Bryce Kane. They got Malcolm
Simmons.
Simmons as an absolute burner. Bryce
Yep.
Kane is Kadarius Toney like with the wiggle. They got Perry Thompson and they got Cam Coleman. And you know, if you're in that, the offense was the problem last year. It wasn't the defense, which they lost their defensive coordinator also to Florida. So they have to figure that out. You know, and the defense didn't have a bunch of stars and accolades when it comes to that side of the ball, to where they overperformed of what they have. So are we thinking that Auburn might take an uptick in offense and a downtick of defense maybe?
I think it's certainly possible. When I break down Auburn, I have 3 questions for the Tigers. One, we've already discussed: quarterback. Is your quarterback play
is
going
it
to
a
be
war eagle or is it a tiger?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows, right? They're confused about what that is. Don't get me started on that. But one's quarterback, right? We've talked about that. 2 is defensive back. That's another area where they dipped into the transfer portal. They got a guy from Alabama, Antonio Kite. I certainly think he has the ceiling, but is he ready to play? I'm not saying he's not. I just don't know. We have to see it. You're relying on a guy to really come in there and be a guy in that secondary who doesn't have the experience yet.
Correct.
Could he? I don't know, but he didn't stick around and go to war with the guys that Alabama brought in. They brought in 3 5-star true freshmen. He was out, right? He was out, transferred to Auburn. So we're going to see what happens there. That's my second question. And my third and final question for Auburn. This is one where Auburn fans and some people might say I'm a hater. And I don't, Cody, I think you know me well enough to know I don't hate for no reason. Right? If you might not agree with me, but you might understand where I'm coming from. My third question is Hugh Freeze. Yeah. Hugh Freeze is the type of coach to go and beat a Nick Saban and Alabama and then lose to Memphis the next week. Then go to Florida and have them drop 31 points on him as he's held scoreless. Or a New Mexico State. Hugh Freeze has not shown me the consistency in a Power 5 slate to where I'm like, man, you got to worry about him every game of the year, right? He just hasn't shown me that.
And we talked about him at Liberty behind the scenes, and I said, well, it's kind of a false, because you had the best players in that conference. So it's like, yeah, you did really well there, but you had the best players, so you should do well. Right. Let's go ahead and get into that recruiting bit there that you were going to go to before I scrolled you off on the other tree there.
No, man, anytime you want me over here, you just send me the message. I love talking ball with you, with Shelton. It's just such a good time. But looking at Auburn's class in the 2025, I'm not going to sit here and lie to y'all. It's a good recruiting class. It's a really good recruiting class. One thing I'm going to do is I'm always going to be honest to my opinion. And I do like the class, but whenever we dive in and we look at this with some context, with some nuance, this is where I think you have a lot of people on Twitter, which we know is where all reasonable discussions happen, right? Is Twitter. That's the home of reason and non-delusion. But on Twitter, a lot of people are saying Bama should be worried about how Auburn is really heating up in-state recruiting. And if this was year 4 with Kalen DeBoer, I'd be a bit more hesitant, but it's year 1. Hugh and them have a head start on in-state recruiting, but still, Bama number 2 class in the nation. We talk first about a Derek Smith, who I think is a phenomenally gifted prospect. I really do think that he is a guy that's going to turn heads at the next level. We look at the 24/7 Sports Composite, man. He's number 43 in the nation, number 2 athlete in the nation, the number 2 in the state of Alabama. Well, Bama wanted him at defensive back. They really liked him at safety. I don't think it takes a genius, man, to watch his highlights and be like, you can play a lot of different positions, but I think your upside at the defensive back position is unreal. Bama has notoriously wanted a smaller wide receiver class for this cycle, right? They have Lotzier Brooks. They have Caleb Cunningham. They would have taken a Derek Meadows or a Kalik Lockett if they were so inclined to commit to Alabama, because you don't turn away commitments from guys like that. You make things work. But they like Derek Smith, the defensive back. He wanted to play wide receiver. And listen, more power to you, man. I would much rather someone decommit from an Alabama, whoever your favorite team is. I would much rather them decommit and go where they're going to be happier than, let's say, he goes to Alabama. And I'm not saying this would be the case with Derek Smith, but Cody, you're going to understand exactly where I'm going with this. If he goes to Alabama and then realizes once he's on campus, I don't want to be a safety, I want to be a wide receiver, and now he's not 100% bought in, because then that can be infectious. You know, other people might start not being as bought in because they see someone who's not bought in. I'd much rather him decide in high school, I want to be a wide receiver, and then flip. I don't even care if it's to Auburn. I'm happy you came to that conclusion, and I wish you all the success in the world. I think he is a phenomenally talented prospect, but that's the context and nuance there. He wanted to play wide receiver. Auburn is giving him that opportunity to do so. More power to you. And Quan Fegan. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And real fast, it's okay to be second fiddle with the transfer portal. He may get to Auburn and be like, this is not for me. I'm going to go to Bama. I'm going to go to Bama. I'm going to do what they ask, because obviously, you know, teams underperform, overperform. I'm going to go there. Florida, as a Florida fan, and many, not just Florida, many schools have in just a year have flipped kids. Grimsley, one of them that you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Talented
Florida DB. It was neck and neck. And then all of a sudden, you know, Saban leaves and he's like, I think I'm just going to go to Florida, because it was second fiddle. He loved everything about that program, but it was just the Saban effect. Maybe if you're second fiddle at Bama, you might still scoop these kids up a year later, and it might be better for you. You might have more needs at that position. You might have attrition there, or guys getting poached in the transfer portal or NFL, or you have the injury bug hits, and you got to have a guy like that. You might need a guy that you came second fiddle to, the bridesmaid. It's not a bad thing in college football anymore to be the second best in recruiting the first year.
No, I think you're 100% right. Thank you, everybody, for dropping in here. And rhyming, before you go, be sure to check out High Top Sports Recruiting. These are fantastic YouTube channels. Anytime I get the opportunity to work with the professor, anytime I get the opportunity to work with High Top himself, I jump at the opportunity. And as I said, if anybody didn't hear it earlier, Saturdays, I will be featured on some High Top morning shows, and those are a blast. Hell, we came out in costume some last year. You don't want to miss that. Like, it is truly some of the most fun I've had doing content. You need to have your notifications turned on for that. Pam, happy you're here. Thank you for showing up. As always, thank you all for the support. No, I love that point, man. I really do. College football has changed drastically, and it changes more every single year. And with the transfer portal, as long as, like, if a Derek Smith goes to Auburn, my only hope is that the staff, whenever they got that call, their reaction was, hey, man, whatever is best for you, we wish you the best. Congratulations. And you got a home here. If you know, things don't work, you got a home here. You want to know why I say that? Because that's what Nick Saban said to Damani Jackson. When Damani Jackson was a silent commit to Alabama, he ended up flipping that commitment when nobody knew he was committed to USC, calls Nick Saban, and Nick Saban says, hey, I'm happy for you. If that's where you feel like you need to be, if that's where you feel called, by all means, go to USC. But know this, you always have a home here. He hits the transfer portal. Where does he go? Alabama. And then, I don't know if you saw the story, some of the people were calling him when Saban retired. And they were like, hey, are you going to stick around? And he's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, right? Like, I'm no Saban, how the brand of Alabama, I'm here. So I really love that point about the transfer portal because it's 100% true. But that's Derek Smith. You get into Anquan Fegans, another very talented prospect. Bama just never was really in this battle, right? That was one that Auburn has looked good at. And that's one that's just like, okay, yeah, good win for Auburn, no doubt about it. You go to Jared Smith, another one that Bama, I don't think that there was a lot of movement Bama's way for Jared Smith. Now, we do have to acknowledge that that edge position for Alabama is absurdly loaded. Keon Keeley having a lot of time in front of him, moving from that Wolf to Bandit in the new defense. But even then, you look at that Wolf position, you have a Yanze Pierre, who is a 5-star freshman last year. You have a Ross, who is going to be a freshman this year. You have Noah Carter, who's a freshman this year. You have Quay Rusaw, who you can play him there. You can play him at stand-up linebacker. A lot of versatility. You got a lot of young talent at that edge rush position, and that's why I don't think Bama has been super pressed about it. And Bama goes to Ohio and gets a Justin Hill, who is a top 75 ranked prospect in the nation. And if I'm not mistaken, might actually be Jared Smith is 57, Justin Hill's 56, right? So they're very talented, both of them.
Yeah. And you got Jacoby Falk also.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that Alabama has done there that they've built up that room. Eric Winters is another name that I don't know how much Alabama has been involved in that battle. Now, safety is a position where I'm really interested to see where they pivot because of Derek Smith flipping. They wanted him at safety. He wanted to play wide receiver. So that's going to be a call that you have to answer. But I'm not sure that they were ever just super pushing on Winters because they had Derek Smith and because they got a Cam Howard and a King Mack in the transfer portal at that safety position, along with the Keon Sabb, who could be there 1 year, but I think will probably be there 2 years to really build out his draft grade. Then you got a Red Morgan. You got a Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. Think about that one for a second, man. Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. is at Bama now. His dad played at Alabama what seemed like yesterday, and now son is there and really is showing some flashes. So that safety position, they'll answer, but I'm not sure where. Zion Grady at Ohio State. Obviously, Auburn didn't win that battle, but he was a guy that the last staff was really in on. He goes to Ohio State, and I'm actually interested in seeing who his lead recruiter is, because if it's Larry Johnson. What are you going to do, man? Like, Larry Johnson's that guy. He really is. And then Malik Autry. Now, out of all of the guys we've talked about thus far, man, Malik Autry is the one that I wish Bama would send the full court press on this young man. I think he's really, really gifted. Love his game, but I just don't know that Bama has sent that full court press the way Auburn has. And I love his game. So that's another big win for them. And then the last guy that we can talk about that flipped from Bama to Auburn to Bama back to Auburn is Antonio Coleman. And listen, kind of the same thing with Derek Smith, right? Except with Antonio Coleman, this is your fourth flip.
Yeah, it's getting odd.
I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being young and being indecisive. We've all been there.
It's the biggest decision of his life at 18 years old. You know, brain's not fully developed. That thing don't develop. We know it doesn't develop till like what, 25?
I'm 29 and it's still not developed. So
yeah,
hey,
yeah. So we get it, but he needs to lock something in. I will ask this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 inside the national 100 for Auburn out of Alabama. This might be one of the better classes to actually come out of Alabama. Now, if Saban was still there, it's a what if. How many of these guys that does Auburn probably not get? 3 or 4 of them. truthfully, because Saban had that state locked down. And I think there's going to be some wait and sees for some kids. I think there's some kids probably on the fence. They're going to wait and see if Bama still rolls like they usually do. There might be some flips late, and I really think that truthfully, I think that that they're just waiting and seeing. They're saying, yeah, we're committed now to get our name somewhere, to get into a spot, but if Bama rolls and wins a national championship, beats Georgia, or makes the playoffs, which they can do, I think there's going to be some flips.
Yeah, to answer your question about how many of these guys would still be committed, if Derek Smith decided he wanted to play wide receiver, he probably still would have flipped if it was the same thing with that staff where it's like, hey, we really like you at safety.
Gotcha.
He probably still would have flipped. And I really do mean this, right? Like, I am so high on Derek Smith. That doesn't change just because he's at Auburn. I mean, I made a whole video outlining about how, hey, this guy could push 5-star territory. I really do believe he's that talented. But I would much rather you flip somewhere. I don't care where it is. It could have been UNT for all I care. As long as you decide like, hey, I actually don't want to play this position. I really would be happier playing this. By all means, man, I want you as bought in wherever you are as you can be, because you talked about the transfer portal earlier, man. You're probably a little bit less likely to transfer if you are happier playing a position that you want to play, which is going to lead to you being more bought in, more energetic. If he would have came to Bama and the whole time he's like, man, I really want to play wide receiver, but that's a pretty loaded wide receiver room. They want me at safety. I'm going to get out of here. Right. Like, I just don't want that experience, right? I don't want anybody who's not bought in. And
yeah, for sure. It's like being in accounting and you really want to be in sales.
Yeah.
As a job, right? Real fast, 30 seconds. We gotta pay the bills. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gents, it's football time, which also means it's betting time. Whether betting lines, over-unders, right? Pick'ems, what have you. The best place to do it is a link in the description at BetUS. And for your first 3 deposits, you get back 125% up to $2,000. They're actually just giving money away. And I'm telling you right now, their lines are incredible for everyone to win. They've got overs and unders that are making me scratch my head going, are they sure they want to do this? 4.5s on Florida. They got 10.5 on Oregon. Fantastic stuff. You guys want to be sure to check that thing out. So link is in the description. Let's get back to the content here. And be sure to like and subscribe too if you can.
Back at it.
I love that guy.
I love him too.
Did you see the picture he posted today?
Yes.
Oh my God. I nearly dropped my phone. I was like, what are you doing?
Yep. That's the boss man.
I love that guy. For.
Yeah. We were talking the other day, real fast, just a side caveat. We were talking the other day. And I was like, bro, like I'm just so blessed to be here. I had a small thing going, and Ty brought me on when I was FS for Fanatics, and I really appreciate everything that Ty did. I met Ty through Shelton, and then things happened, and I joined the High Top crew, and boy, I haven't looked back, and I love it. He's incredible, man.
Yeah, that guy's hilarious.
All right, so back to the goodness, the goodies. Obviously, let's go ahead and roll into some season play. Okay. We're going to turn the recruiting talk off a little bit. What are your predictions for Auburn? Obviously, quarterback, big question. Defense, giant question. Losing their defensive coordinator last year to Florida. What are you thinking? Are you thinking they step back a little bit? You think it's about the same? You think the offense takes an uptick? Do you think the defense is the same and the offense takes an uptick and they surprise some people? What are you thinking? And then we'll break down Bama.
Yeah, I think that the Auburn offense will be better, right? I don't think that I don't have too much of a doubt about that. Just because even if you have Peyton Thorne, like, he should be better. God knows if it's the same as last year, you don't have a Robbie Ashford anymore. So you got no choice. They have a great running back room. That's something I think even we can all acknowledge. They have got a really good running back room. I love the wide receiver play they have. Now, the only reason I'm, not hesitant on the wide receiver play because I'm fully bought in on the talent they have. But Peyton Thorne's got to get them the football.
Yep.
And it was not an encouraging year for him last year, right? It just wasn't. And unless he becomes that guy, I don't know, man. I'm not super bought in there. But when I look at the schedule, right, like I at the beginning of this, we talked about the three things I questioned for Auburn. That's quarterback, that's defensive back, and that's head coach, because Hugh Freeze is a goober, right? Like he just is. He's the type of guy to try and not prep for New Mexico State because he wants to prep for Alabama, and then he gets his ass kicked by New Mexico State.
What? Hey, Ty, when the margaritas are 2 for $1 on Thursday, what do you want from the guy?
Listen, hey, that's fair. That's fair. I can't fault you there if that's the reason. If he comes out and said, listen, it was dollar doubles Friday night, ladies and gentlemen, I would actually take that.
He looks like the type, though. He does.
He probably does, yeah. So we've talked a lot about Peyton Thorne. Defensive back, they're young. And I get, Bama has some young defensive backs, but Bama also has some leadership back there in terms of a Malachi Moore, in terms of a Sab, in terms of a Damani Jackson, a Deshaun Jones now from the transfer portal. Like, you got some veteran guys, and then you got 3 5-star true freshmen. And Zabian Brown, I don't know if you remember that All-American game.
Yeah.
They were talking about him as being the most college-ready defensive back in the class. He's a talented dude. And then, like I said, head coach Hugh Freeze is definitely the type to go and beat Nick Saban on a Saturday, and then next week he's losing to Memphis. The week after that, Florida's dropping 30 unanswered points on him. He just doesn't give you any consistency. At the Power 5 level, he has not been consistent. He has been the definition of inconsistent. And actually, DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown didn't sniff 1,000 yards under his tutelage. It was when he left that they actually got better. Ole Miss is better with him gone. Lane has them way better than they were under Hugh Freeze, right? They lost 2 games last year. That wasn't Ole Miss.
So why is he considered such a offensive savant? I said it. I think he can dial it up pretty good. Is it because that these lesser schools he just throttles people like at Liberty? There's a couple guys in the game: Bobby Petrino, Dan Mullen, the guy at UC.
Yeah,
they just dial it up. They're so much better on offense than what everybody else is in the country. What is that? Listen,
I think Hugh's a good offensive coach. Even though I have my questions about him, it's because he's a goofy goober. He can coach offense, but Hugh is one of those guys that makes nonsensical decisions consistently. For instance, he was just talking about how he should have 4 wins against Alabama. And one of them, he was like, oh, we were up 21, 24 points on them, and we kept our foot on the gas. We should have taken our foot off the gas. How does that make sense to you, man? So you're saying that you don't have a defense, and your game plan should have been to stop trying to score? That's inconsequentially stupid, right? Like, they can't put consistent game plans together. Can he be a great offensive coach? Yes, but he is a goofy goober, and that's the history of Hugh Freeze.
What's the guy I'm thinking of? He was at Oklahoma, and then he left for USC.
Oh, Lincoln Riley.
Riley, dial it up, boy. He can score 40 on you, but the defense is not going to be there. Hugh Freeze is the best offensive play caller in the country.
He's
Chris
not
Williams,
top 3.
He's not that good. I think Petrino minus a blonde on a Harley has his day all day long. I mean,
I take Sark over him. I take Lane Kiffin over him. I take Petrino over him. I take Kalen DeBoer over him.
I take Dan Mullen out of the ESPN box over him.
Yeah, I honestly would. Okay,
defensively, what are we thinking? Uptick? Maybe
if the defensive back room is good, I think they'll be fine, but I do have questions about them. And they play Oklahoma fairly early in the season, September 28th. I don't know if you've taken a look into that Oklahoma wide receiver room,
It's
But
wild.
I am
It's
very
good.
happy as a Bama fan that Bama plays OU late because we have young defensive backs outside of the few leaders. Like, we need that defensive back room to really develop. And I know that's a double-edged sword because by that time, Oklahoma's offensive line is going to have developed well. Jackson Arnold is going to have developed as well. I'd rather play that wide receiving core late in the season with a young secondary than early. Auburn dials them up early. Oklahoma returns the most talent in the SEC on the defensive side of the ball. They are going to try and get after Peyton Thorne. We know Brent Venables is going to try and confuse him. And I think that's a very losable game for Auburn. In fact, right now, I have Auburn losing that game. I have them losing to Georgia. I think they could lose to Missouri just because if their secondary isn't what they should be, that's a rough 3-game stretch from Oklahoma, Georgia, and Missouri. They could lose all of those games. Texas, go ahead.
Is it at Missouri?
I'm not sure if it's at Missouri or not.
If it's at Missouri, then it's a guaranteed loss. Jeez, that place is a misery is what we call it.
It is at
here.
Missouri.
Oh, yeah, that's a L. Just go ahead. And ain't nobody going to be in the stands. It might be cold, rainy, windy. Yeah, just take the L there, bud.
And Texas A&M is going to be sneaky, man. I'm actually way higher on, and I ranted about some Texas A&M. You'll remember those rants. I'm higher on Elko than I was on Jimbo. I think defensive-minded coaches, especially at a place like A&M, it leads to better discipline.
Even year one? You think they sneak some teams year one?
I think they sneak some teams year one. I'm not saying they're winning the SEC year one. I just don't think they're that. But whenever we look at what Mike Elko did at Duke, it's actually incredible, man. Let me pull this up during the course of our conversation, because when I was looking at this the other day, the improvement you saw from whenever he got there to whenever he left.
Lost a lot of talent. A lot of talent Texas A&M did, though.
They did, but they still have their quarterback. They still have some good wide receivers. Hate that Reuben Owens went down with injury. That guy's a monster. They still have some interior guys that I think are pretty darn good, as well as having some defensive back help that I really like. But check this out. Mike Elko takes over Duke after they went 3-9. Their offense ranked 102nd in the nation. Their defense ranked 127th. The first year he was there, the offense ranked 32nd in the nation, and the defense ranked 31st. The second year he was there, the offense did diminish, right? They went to 68th in the nation, but it needs to be noted that Riley Leonard got hurt. Duke doesn't have a DJ Lagway behind a Riley Leonard, as my camera is emphasizing the point and has froze on me. But you want to know what their defense did, man? Went to 17th in the nation at Duke. So this is a guy that can flat out coach, is Mike Elko. So I think that A&M could sneak some people, and then Bama plays Auburn in Bryant-Denny. Auburn doesn't beat Bama in Bryant-Denny. Bama struggles with Auburn because that stadium is cursed. I don't know if it's, Indian burial ground or something that it was built on, and I don't know.
As a Vikings fan, I know all about being cursed.
Oh, don't start. I'm a Vikings fan as well, and we'll cry together about this.
Later, off stream. It's a college debut.
Chris says, I remember 2010. That's a lot. I'm glad your memory is that good.
Yes. So, Alabama. What obviously everybody. Okay, let's say this. The typical Bama fan, natty or nothing.
I think that's your blue blood fans, right? Are delusional, and that's what makes them a beautiful fan base to make content for. Any of them.
Bama, what do you think is the low of low, and then your mid of the road, and then your ceiling for this team?
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting schedule. I actually love how the schedule plays out. You get an easier opponent to start off with in Western Kentucky. I like that. Then you go to South Florida. Now, South Florida was a darn good program last year, coached by Golesh, and they run a veer and shoot offense. And for any of my football X's and O's guys or gals out there, you know that veer and shoot can be a thorn in your side to deal with. They are going to split you out real wide. Tennessee, right?
Wake Forest, slow mash, pain in the side.
Chris Williams says, I don't understand what all the hype is about. Bama lost too many players to be good. They have the second most talented roster in college football per every publication, and they have the most 5 stars in college football on the roster. That's why.
Veer and shoot is annoying. Yes, Stephen G. Veer and shoot is annoying. It's like that slow mesh Wake Forest offense or playing Army or triple option Air Force. It's annoying.
It's annoying, but I love that you get it game 2 in Tuscaloosa because Tennessee runs that. And if Nico, you know how high I am on Nico, man. I don't hide that fact. I think Nico's ceiling could be, I think he could be a really good quarterback.
I think he's a six touchdowns or 6 pick type of kid year one.
I think that's fair. I think I think that's a very fair assessment. I just happen to be on the more optimistic side, but I do understand that sentiment.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see with Nico. But go ahead.
So yeah, you get South Florida, you get the prep for a veer and shoot based offense early. Love that. Then you go to Wisconsin. Wisconsin is figuring out their quarterback situation. I believe today it was named Tyler Van Dyke, but he didn't come in there and claim the job like so many people had wanted. I'm not as worried about Tyler Van Dyke. I'll tell you who I'm worried about on that Wisconsin team. They got a defensive back by the name of Ricardo Hallman that is so nasty. It's ridiculous, right? Just an unbelievable player. I think that's going to be a great game at Wisconsin. Then you go to Georgia.
Real fast on Wisconsin. Running back They have running backs for days. You may not know their name. Nobody knew Breland Allen. Nobody knew every back before, and they are O-line U too. They put a lot of O-linemen in the NFL.
Bama's running back U. Last 2 Heisman Trophy winners.
Okay. I get it, but
2,000-yard season
for Wisconsin, the amount of running.
I'm not taking anything away. It is incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible for a program like that. It's a Big Ten running back you for sure. They put talent in the league every single day. Everybody's like, oh, Ohio State, bro. Wisconsin. It's 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They're gonna run it down your throat. Go ahead though.
No, 100%. And if I may,
Taylor also, yes.
Yeah, Chris Williams says you can't lose your entire defense. They didn't. The defensive line is still there. Interior defensive front is still there. Safety's still there. You got a 5-star cornerback who is the number 5 player in his respective class who runs a 10-2 500-meter dash in Damani Jackson, and then a very highly graded cornerback in Deshaun Jones, plus 3 5-star true freshmen. If Auburn's excited about their freshman wide receivers, it is then delusional to think that another fan base can't be excited about 5-star defensive backs, right? Like that logic doesn't compute. Every good wide receiver. Burton was a big loss in Isaiah Bond, right? Like he was a big loss, but there's no rational football fan out there that thinks that Alabama's offense last year was anywhere as good as what Kalen DeBoer does schematically. Kalen DeBoer is a much better play caller than is Tommy Rees. All due respect to Tommy Rees. And then my last question to Chris, when was the last time a coach of Nick Saban's caliber retired and the team that he retired from went and got the coach that was just in the national championship?
I'm going to say this with Kalen DeBoer offensively. I don't know. I don't remember the last time that Alabama had a offensive coordinator that can dial it up like that. It's
2020, Steve Sarkisian and AJ Milwee.
It's so hard because they rinse and repeat so many OCs. It's like, I'm not really sure the last time. So you say Sark 2020?
Yep, that was the last offensive coordinator that did anything analogous to what Alabama's doing. And you look at the all-22 footage, man, the way they pin and pull the offensive line.
Washington was potent on offense.
Very, very. And now he's got a lot more talent at his disposal than he had at Washington. And listen, Penix,
the brand brings that. Bama brings that.
True, 100%. 100% about that. But that would be why, Chris, is like you just look at every factor. And I understand you're an Auburn fan, but that's the real, right? Like, not even saying that from an Alabama fan perspective. That's why people are still high on Alabama. They didn't go hire a guy that was middle of the pack. They hired a guy that is 25-3 since taking over a program that was 4-8 when he got there, right?
For sure.
2 years it took him to get to the national championship. They didn't just go hire Joe Blow, like just being real. But moving forward on the schedule, September 28th, you got Georgia. That is a test, man. And actually, every college football fan should circle that game. That's going to be a schematic masterpiece. Kirby's defense versus Kalen DeBoer's offense. That's a toss-up game. Georgia, I think, is going to be very good. And that's just an incredible thing. Alabama's offense in 2022 was not the best they've ever had, Chris. Steve Sarkisian was the best offensive play caller. Bryce Young was the best quarterback they ever had, but I know the insight into what that offense looked like on the inside, and Bill O'Brien is not the best coordinator Alabama has had, far from it. Like,
yeah, he's not even the best coach. A lot of people don't respect him in the league.
Yeah,
they don't like him.
Yeah, that's just fundamentally not true. Then you go Vanderbilt, you go South Carolina. South Carolina could be a good team, man, if they get that offensive line figured out. But they got to get that offensive line figured out. And if it's not figured out, I'm really high on Alabama's defensive front. October 19th, you got Tennessee. Another great matchup, that darn veer and shoot. You got Missouri, October 26th. That's another one, right? But it is at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Very happy about that. As long as the defensive backs have come together and as long as you can get pressure on the quarterback, they'll be good. And also, Missouri lost a lot of talent in terms of coaching and defensive players. So how are they going to respond? Remains to be seen. After Missouri, you have LSU, and I got a little bit of a hot take on LSU, man.
Oh, LSU. Golly, I don't know. I don't know if the defense is going to be any better. And
that's my thing.
It's Brian Kelly. I mean,
listen, I get a lot of flack from Alabama fans. I'm higher on Brian Kelly than a lot of people are, right? I am. I think he's a good coach. I don't necessarily think that he's a great coach.
I think he's a great coach. No, okay. I think he's a great coach. You got a problem? You got a player sleeping with staff members? That's the guy you want. I mean, he is a king of sweep it under the rug. I mean, that is the guy.
Listen, when you're right, you're right. I don't know what to say to that. But to your point, I really question LSU's defense. I love Bo Davis. I love the defensive hires they made, but I don't think that they have the on-field talent to really make the difference in that major jump year one, right? That would be really interesting to see. I just don't see it. And whenever we talk about the offense, I actually like Nussmeier. I think he's going to be a darn good quarterback. I'm not even worried about the wide receivers they lost because it's LSU.
It's LSU. They got kids that are 1-stars that are Justin Jefferson. Yeah,
they're going to be just fine at that.
Yeah.
Here's my question offensively, and it's not the offensive line. They're going to have an offensive line that's up for the Joe Moore Award. They're that good. Will Campbell might be the best player. Jaden Daniels was that running game.
Yeah.
And though I like Nussmeier, one of the things that made that LSU offense so dangerous is defenses had to account for Daniels' legs. Like he kept you honest now.
We saw LSU Florida. They don't win that game with Nussmeier.
And I like Nussmeier. I really think that
I think he's a great kid. He's a coach's kid. Very smart. He's a grip it and rip it type of quarterback. I love him. I think that he thinks his arm is better than sometimes it's going to get him beat against nastier DBs. But he's not mobile like what they used. And when you have a guy like Anthony Richardson, when you have a guy like Jaden Daniels, when you have a guy like Michael Vick, that it just clouds over so much of your imperfections.
Yeah. You can be wrong and still be right.
You could be wrong on the offensive line. You could have the worst offensive line in the nation.
And he's going to make it right. That's how do you replace that? And I love Caden Durham. They got him from Duncanville. I think he's a hell of a talent. And maybe he's the answer, right? Freshman running backs, that is a position you can play freshmen so long as they understand pass blocking. And he might very well be able to do that coming from Duncanville. So for sure. LSU, though, I'm not quite as high on LSU as some other people. Not that I don't think that they're not trending in the right direction, but they need a lot of work on the defensive side of the ball, right? They just do.
And their problem is they can't get out of their own way in the very beginning of the season. They always lose. I think they have another big game one. Always lose that.
Yeah. LSU is going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. But moving forward, you got Mercer next. Need I say more? This isn't Auburn. They're not losing to New Mexico State. You got OU after Mercer. OU is a game I'm telling every Alabama fan circle. Like, I don't want Alabama fans looking at OU and being like, oh, easy W. That's going to be a game now. I keep saying this. Oklahoma returns the most talent on the defensive side of the ball in the SEC. Now, they return the least amount of talent in the SEC on the offensive side of the ball. But that wide receiver room is dangerous. The running back room, very talented. I think Jackson Arnold is very good. I'm also biased. I've said this before. If you come from Denton and I watched you play, I'm going to sing your praises. And Jackson Arnold comes from Denton Geyer. I watched him play in high school, very high on his ability. So OU, I think as long as the offensive line, my question isn't if they will be good. It's Bill Bedenbaugh. He gets the benefit of the doubt. It's how good will you be? Because I think Alabama's defensive front is going to be really good. And Steven, yeah, y'all did portal heavy, but it's about gelling along the offensive line. It's one thing to have a bunch of guys who've played a bunch of snaps, but the offensive line has got to gel as a unit. And that's why I still say, but I do love the additions.
If Portal fixes all your problems, Colorado should have won a national championship last year.
That's fair, but I must say I do love like the center they got out the portal. I think that was a home run.
It's the free agency. You can go and get a piece here or there, but you can't build your whole team around the portal.
No, they didn't though.
We've seen it over and over. It just obviously doesn't work. Florida State tried it and they got darn close, but that pivotal piece of the guy that couldn't stay healthy all the time, the quarterback, it didn't end up staying healthy and it kept him out. But go ahead.
No, and I think that that's the only thing, Steven, is you're right. I do love the portal additions y'all got, especially on the defensive line, right? Like, I'm not worried about Dominic Williams plug and play because you don't need to gel a defensive line together like you do an offensive line. And that's why I say, Steven, I'm not worried about OU having a bad
and they got that
line.
They got a killer freshman class. They got the power line.
Yeah, they got a great freshman class, and I do agree the Bama game is late in the season, so you have time to get gelled. No, that's 100% true. That's 100% true from OU's perspective, and I said earlier in the show, Steven, from Bama's perspective, I'm glad we have OU late in the season because we have young defensive backs like a Zabian Brown, who I think are going to be pushing for playing time. Y'all have got a great wide receiver room. I'm glad that happens late. OU is a game, man. And then Auburn. Auburn's at home. I have those three questions about Auburn. I think they're going to be able to exploit them defensively. I think Jalen Milroe is going to be in a much better position than he was under Tommy Rees. I actually think this wide receiver room could be a lot better because they have a better wide receiver coach this year. The offensive line is going to run a scheme that's more conducive to success in the pin and pull than was, hey, let's try and make every guy 395 billion pounds and have a standing brick wall, right? Like Auburn in Tuscaloosa, I like Alabama. So I think 9-3 is a season that's like, man, you drop the ball along the way at some different points. I think it could happen. I don't think it's likely to happen, but 9-3 with this schedule, because it's not the most brutal schedule in the world, but it's not an easy schedule, right? You got some teams. I think 10-2 or 11-1 is probably where I'd put Alabama. I think 10-2 is a good guess for Kalen DeBoer first year with what they have returning. And that's because you play at Georgia early in the season. That's a tough game. That's a very tough game.
What do you say real fast? What do you say to Bama fans that say 10-2 is not good enough?
I mean, that's,
because they're there.
Sure. But I think that there are fans of blue blood. I'll put it like this. And Steven, I hate to say this because you're an OU fan. So OU fans, I say this with love. I think OU has a unquestioned top 3 offensive line coach in the nation. We would both agree, right, that OU is a blue blood team?
Yeah, for sure.
I get comments on some of my videos that Bill Bedenbaugh should be fired because he hasn't landed the 5 stars.
Who cares?
Blue blood fans, but my point
he puts the most NFL talent that is actually still in the NFL.
No, I 100% agree
that
with
gets second contracts, not 3-year washes. That get second contracts.
Blue blood fans say the wildest things, and that's why I love covering blue blood institutions because their fans are a different level of passionate.
Yeah, I'm
right?
a Florida fan. I get it.
And so if I heard an Alabama say 10-2 isn't good enough, I would say, listen, man, you don't need to be perfect to make the college football playoff anymore. 10-2 gets you into the playoffs. That's great. It's a first-year Kalen DeBoer roster. He has to get acclimated to the SEC. I have all the faith in the world. I have all the faith in the world in Kalen DeBoer. But you do play at Georgia. And there are some toss-up games in this schedule. Like Georgia, I think, is definitely a toss-up game.
Yep.
Depending on how good Nico is, Tennessee is going to be a damn good game, and it's in Neyland.
Could throw 6 picks, could throw 6 touchdowns.
We don't know. And Oklahoma is another game that I look at, and I'm like, hey, that's tough, right? That's tough. So
yeah. Okay. Florida's not necessarily a blue blood. We've had success and they're rowdy fans. Okay, I'll take that back. Price W. Go ahead.
There's like if we're doing the tier list, you ever seen those? Like there's S tier.
Yes.
Florida's an A tier, right?
Yeah.
Like they're the tier right below blue blood. That's like, hey, you can join in on some of these conversations. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like you have a brand, you have that success. I'll take it.
Who is your dark horse before we're going to wrap this up pretty quick? Who is your dark horse out of all of college football? Who's a team that you eye and say, oh, that's a team that could make a ruckus no matter the no matter the conference? I think Oregon in the Big Ten.
Is that a dark horse though?
It is, because it's Dan Lanning has yet to win the big ones.
Fair.
They're going into a power defense, run it down your throat. They have never defensively been okay with stopping that. I think Oregon is my dark horse. I think they can beat Ohio State. I think they have a team that can beat Ohio State. I think they can run with Michigan. I think they might win the Big Ten their first year, which would be incredible.
Yeah, I love Steven's pick, K-State. I think that's a great answer. And I got a question for you, man, very quickly. Do you think, not that they're better, but do you think that the Big 12 is more competitive now that Texas and OU are out? Because now it's a more equitable playing field amongst the conference with the additions that they've made, whereas Texas and OU out-recruited the whole conference, had bigger budget, had bigger eyes. I think that the conference is more equitable without them in there. Not that they're better, but I'm excited for some Big 12 football. Let me tell you what.
I'm going to say this. I think Texas and Oklahoma, I think that they were the shot callers. I think they were the top programs in the Big 12, and I think that they were using that to their advantage, and this might get some flack. They want to post all of this stuff about how great they are. Wait till you get into the SEC. Hey, Texas, Oklahoma win the SEC day, year one. You have my respect. I think they're in for a rude awakening. I don't think they understand the grinder of what the SEC is. I think that they are teams that flaunted about a program that they outbought for years and years and years. That's what I think. And I do think that the Big 12 did get better with getting them out of there. I think that the conference is more aligned with the kids, with the schools that they have.
I think it's a more competitive conference.
Absolutely.
Not that it's better, because OU and Texas obviously are top 10 brands. I would pick OU and Texas to be better than
they're top 10 brands in a bad league. It's like the being the Pac-12 championship. The Pac-12 champions. Like, what? You're not the SEC championship.
You're gonna hate my dark horse pick then.
You're not the Big 10 champion.
No. But here's what I will say for my dark horse. If OU didn't have the brutal schedule that they had, because let's be honest, if it wasn't for your favorite school, OU might have the most difficult schedule in college football. But y'all's slate of games is sickening. I don't know. what
it
they
gets
have
worse
on him.
year 2 because they just flipped to away games.
Well, that's why I kind of disagree with everybody who's like, Billy's on the hot seat. I'm like, so you're going to fire him and then go into a rebuild as my camera. I'm telling you what, we decided earlier today that the greatest rivalry in college football is me versus my camera.
Sure.
That's the greatest rivalry. I think OU is a dark horse, right? Because I think even myself and OU fans will know, I think they're going to be very good. I think that they have been building. The reason why I don't have OU winning the SEC year 1, and I don't have Texas winning the SEC year 1 either, for everybody out there, is their schedule, right? Like, I think that the best teams out there are going to. I don't think anybody's going undefeated in the SEC. I really don't.
No, not
It's
even.
not happening.
It's cannibalistic. Corporate Duck, real fast. You're so tired of hearing OU Texas fans don't know what it is like in the SEC. What would you pick your team as the Florida schedule? How many wins? Let me know real fast in the chat.
Well, I will say they're not far off from y'all's. Y'all's is worse, but they're not far off. OU's schedule is brutal.
Florida's so bad.
Florida's. We were talking about this the other day. I've never seen a schedule like Florida's schedule. I have never in my life seen a schedule that hard. If everybody remains, and teams could be worse than we think, that's true.
Yep.
That's the most difficult schedule if everybody is as good as we think. Steven, I have y'all a little bit under 11-1. Respectfully, of course, I got love for the Sooners. I got love for every college football team out there. I don't say anything out of malice. But I think that a lot of people are looking at OU, are looking at some of the losses they've taken over the past 2 years, not understanding the context of how OU got to where they currently are with the whole Lincoln Riley situation, what that really did, the rebuild they had to do interior-wise, where going from a team that didn't know how to spell defense to being a team that's now, no offense, of course, but being a team that now is priding themselves on a more defensive brand of football. I think they've recruited very well. Top 10 classes every year. Brent Venables has been there. Top 10 classes in transfer portal acquisitions. I think a lot of people are saying OU's going to drop more games than they should. Somebody quickly dropped me the Vegas line. I think it's 7.5 wins for OU. I have them hammering the over in that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I do.
You hammering 4.5? 4.5 for Florida?
Oh, that's rough, man.
4.5?
Y'all have a rough schedule. And I actually love what y'all are doing. I would probably take the over on that. I probably would. Because y'all have a cursed schedule, man. Like,
I know, but we're depth wise, we have everybody, and then we got DJ Lagway to sprinkle in little Chris Leak, Tim Tebow back in the day.
In fairness, though, Graham Mertz was not the issue last year. I owed him an apology, and I have done so multiple times.
I apologize to him.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I
thought he was a bust. My dad's a big Wisconsin fan. I thought he was the worst quarterback in the portal. I broke down his film. I was like, I see what they're seeing, but I just don't think he's there. And he did not lose them a single game.
No, he was not the reason they lost a game. I actually think if y'all have Graham Mertz, y'all beat Florida State. Granted, they didn't have their starting quarterback either, so that's a little bit of a shoot
defense.
shit.
It was defense.
Yeah, they had a great defense. Florida State did, no doubt about it. But I would say my dark horse is OU for the simple fact that I think a lot of people are writing them off, and I think that they're more ready than people realize.
I'm not writing them off. I'm not writing them off a single game. I know the national pundits are.
Yes.
The national. Listen. I covered OU's recruiting class. I know what that defensive line is from the 2024 class. Jaden Jackson is an absolute mauler. Stoney.
I love Jay, and I like
Jaden Jackson. Jaden Jackson's the guy.
Is a monster.
I said it on my channel. I said it on Hall of Fame called Hall of Fame on Jason's channel. I said everybody's all enamored with Stoney.
As they should be.
Which they should be. Jaden Jackson's the guy that makes it. He is
no doubt.
He is a like what Texas had with
Murphy.
With Murphy.
And
Sweat. That's a linchpin guy. So,
and Okoye, man, they got a guy who is homeschooled, and he is a freak athlete, man.
Yeah,
just incredible, no doubt about it. I'll give you a little homer pick before we get out of here.
All right, let's go ahead.
Fun.
Yeah.
Go watch Noah Carter's film.
I love Noah. Love him.
Yeah, his mom is always in our stream. She might even be in here now. Shout out Ebony if you're in here. You know,
where's he from? Michigan or something?
No, Arizona. Arizona.
White kid?
No, Noah Carter is the defensive end from Arizona who is committed to
I'm thinking
Washington.
I'm thinking the 2024 kid out of like Michigan or something. He was a lunch pail kid. I love that kid too. Noah Carter, very good too. And now I know who you're talking about.
Go check out Noah Carter's highlights. The kid played wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, defensive back, edge, and kick returner, punt returner. Incredible athlete.
Jaden Jackson though is something special.
God. Yeah, should have been a 5-star. I'll say it right here.
Yeah, highly underrated.
Yeah,
as highly rated as he is. Guys, it was supposed to be a 30-minute show. I
told you we'd get 30 minutes.
I know it. Real quick, where is Fauci gonna land on Wednesday? I don't do predictions when it comes to recruiting. I wait till Hayes drops a graphic because
there you go.
I've been burned way too many times. Listen, I've been through the Rashada deal. I've been through the Cormani McLean deal. I don't guess anymore. Yes, Noah is very special. Guys, we've been on for an hour, 30 viewers. Thanks for watching. Ty, I can't wait to have you on during the season. It's going to be so fun on the High Top Original channel. Go ahead, check out all of our channels. High Top Sports Recruiting, High Top Sports Oregon, High Top Sports Georgia, High Top Sports. I'm just saying, we got most of them covered. We don't have a High Top Sports Alabama, but we're working on it. All right. Ty Hayes coming from, thank you for coming on. Go ahead, plug everything that you have, and we will get out of here.
Yeah, man. I think y'all know me. I'm obviously Ty. I'm from Around the Table Sports here on YouTube, just past 22,000 subscribers, right? It is a grind, but you guys can find me over anywhere really that'll give me an opportunity to rant and rave. But one thing to be on the lookout for is after your Alabama games this season, Bleacher Report is bringing me on, and I will be doing your post-game coverage for Bleacher Report for the Alabama Crimson Tide this season. So excited to be a part of Bleacher Report's college football plan for the second year in a row.
For sure, for sure. And then after every single Oregon and Florida game, we will have our fanatical live call-in where the fans get to call in. They get to vent. They get to love. They get to hate. They get to question why bubble pass on 3rd and 12 to the slowest wide receiver in the nation. We do it all at High Top Sports. Can't wait for you guys this season. So excited. We will see you later. Real quick, back to the sponsors, and we are gone.
This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.